Many years ago, long before the whispers began, and before the compound gave her the cruel name of the woman with the strange child, Naomi Abelade was simply a lovely young girl with tender dreams and a heart far too gentle for the world that awaited her. She grew up in Ibadan, the second daughter of a humble carpenter and a yam seller. As a child, her afternoons were often spent at her mother's stall, peeling yams while listening to the raucous laughter of women who traded not only goods but also gossip and roasted plantain. Naomi's mother would often remind her, "A wise woman must learn to use both hands, one for love and the other for survival." Naomi carried that wisdom like a compass for her life. At 19, her path crossed with Bamadil, a young man visiting his cousin from Lagos. He was calm, soft-spoken, and the way he described Lagos made it sound like a city of endless possibilities, a place shimmering under its bridges like the land she often dreamed about. One evening, as they stood under the old mango tree on her street, he told her, "Naomi, Lagos is something else. The lights never go out, the roads never sleep, and everywhere you turn, people are chasing big dreams. It's a place where you can come with nothing and still make something of yourself." Naomi smiled shyly. "And you really think a small-town girl like me can survive in a place like that?" Bamadil grinned. "Not just survive, Naomi, you'll shine. Come with me. We'll build a life together." Her friends warned her not to be hasty, but youth is often blind to caution. His words were sweet, and sometimes love listens to the heart, not reason. Soon after, she agreed to marry him. Their wedding was small and modest, and Naomi followed him to Lagos with nothing more than a little box of clothes, her mother's blessings, and a heart brimming with hope. Lagos, however, was overwhelming at first. The constant blaring of horns at dawn, the traders shouting and tugging at sleeves, the thick mix of exhaust fumes and fried fish in the air. It all pressed against her. Yet she told herself she would adapt, she would make a life here. They lived in a cramped single room in Makoko. It wasn't what she had dreamed of, but she endured it, believing it was only the first step. The following year, when she discovered she was expecting, she thought her prayers had been answered. That night, Bamadil embraced her and promised, "I'll work harder, Naomi. Our child will have everything." But life had its own script. The pregnancy was difficult. Naomi was constantly weak, dizzy, and spent most afternoons lying on a mat while neighbors gossiped nearby. Bamadil tried in those early months, often bringing her mangoes and peeling groundnuts to cheer her. Together they whispered about the bright future they hoped to build. Then one humid evening in June, after a long and weary labor, their son was born. Naomi held him close, tears streaming as she whispered, "Jaden, my comfort, my gift." His calm silence felt like peace to her, though she did not yet know it was the first sign of a different journey. At first, all seemed fine. Jaden fed well, grew steadily, and Naomi adored him with a fierce devotion. But as the months turned to years, small differences began to show. Things the other women at the communal washing area muttered about when they thought she wasn't listening. By the time Jaden turned 2, he would not look when his name was called. He never reached for her arms. Sudden noises, like the roar of a generator or a slammed door, would send him covering his ears, crying until his tiny chest heaved with exhaustion. Unlike other children, he never spoke his first words. Instead, he would spend hours arranging bottle caps in straight lines, starting over if even one was out of place. One afternoon, while Naomi washed clothes at the compound tap, Madame Fadik, the loudest voice in the compound, sidled up beside her. Her tone was syrupy, but her words dripped with mockery. "Naomi, you really should do something about that boy. Look at other children his age, running, talking, responding when called. But yours? Always staring at the ground. Are you sure this isn't something spiritual?" Naomi clenched her jaw, forcing her voice steady. "My son is fine. He just learns differently." But Madame Fadik only shook her head, clicking her tongue. I hope you're right. Because people are watching. And people talk." And talk they did. They whispered at the washing area. They muttered in the market. They gossiped when Jaden refused to play with their children, when he screamed at sudden sounds, when he lined his toys in rows instead of sharing. Naomi walked past them with her head high, pretending not to hear. At first, Bamadil tried to be patient. But soon his questions carried blame. Naomi, why won't Jaden look at me? Why does he scream at the generator? Why won't he play with other children? Exhausted from sleepless nights, Naomi would reply, he's just different. He'll grow into himself. Give him time. But as months stretched into years, Jaden's silence deepened, and Bamidil's patience ran thin. Pressure from his family made it worse. One weekend, his mother visited from Ibadan and pulled him aside. This child is not ordinary. Take him for cleansing before it's too late. Not long after, Bamidil began staying out later, claiming long hours behind the wheel of a staff bus. Naomi knew it was more than work. Then, one evening when Jaden was 4, Naomi returned from the market to find Bamidil sitting on a stool with his bag packed. I can't do this anymore, he muttered, avoiding her gaze. Naomi's chest turned cold. Can't do what, Bamidil? He gestured around the room. This life. It's too heavy. Tears welled in Naomi's eyes. We built this life together. You promised we would carry it side by side. But he shook his head. You don't understand. My friends are buying cars, building houses. And me? I'm slaving away with nothing to show. And Jaden, his voice trailed off. Her tears flowed freely. But Jaden is your son. Bamidil rubbed his face and sighed. I know. And that's why I must leave before I become someone worse. 2 weeks later he was gone, without a word of where. His absence became new fodder for gossip. Madame Fadik was first to pounce. Didn't I say it? Her husband ran away because of that child. If she had any sense, she would have taken him to a prophet. At the borehole, whispers followed her. Single mother with a strange boy. Lagos will finish her. But Naomi ignored them all. She poured her strength into raising her son alone. By the time Jaden turned 7, she had saved enough to enroll him at Hopefield Primary School, hoping that structure might help him connect with others. On his first day, she ironed his uniform neatly, polished his shoes, and packed his lunchbox with extra biscuits. As they walked to the gates, she said gently, Jaden, remember you have friends there. You can sit with them during breaks, okay? Jaden said nothing, staring at the ground, clutching his lunchbox tightly. Naomi swallowed the lump in her throat and whispered a silent prayer as they entered the gates. The first weeks were difficult but manageable. During breaks, Jaden sat under a tree, quietly arranging sticks into patterns while the other children played football noisily. He rarely spoke in class, though he completed his work carefully as long as no one disturbed him. Naomi held on to the hope that maybe things would calm down eventually. But hope is fragile. One hot Tuesday afternoon during handwriting practice, the boy sitting behind Jaden snapped his brand new pencil, lifted it high, and laughed loudly. Look at the silent goat, the boy jeered. Say something now, or can't you talk? The noise, the grabbing hands, and the mocking laughter all hit Jaden at once, too much for him to handle. His chest tightened, his breath came fast, and before anyone could intervene, he shoved the boy so hard that he stumbled into a desk and burst into tears. The classroom froze, and then chaos exploded. Teacher! Jaden pushed him. One child shouted. Teacher Ba hurried over, pulling the sobbing boy upright. Jaden, what is wrong with you? Why can't you behave like the others? But Jaden didn't move. He stayed on the bench, covering his ears tightly with his hands, rocking back and forth as tears streamed down his face. That evening, Naomi was summoned to the school. She sat nervously in the staff room as Madame Chabala voiced her anger. Madam Naomi, this cannot continue. Your son doesn't speak, he doesn't play, and now he's harming other children. I have 30 pupils here. I cannot manage one child who requires special attention. You must get him assessed, or better still, take him to a school for children like him. Naomi's voice shook as she pleaded. He doesn't mean any harm, teacher. Please, he just gets overwhelmed. Give him more time, he's trying. But Teacher Ba shook her head firmly. Time is not the issue. You need to take responsibility. If other parents complain, I may have no choice but to ask you to withdraw him. That evening, Naomi walked home slowly, gripping Jaden's hand tightly, fighting back her tears. As they entered the compound, she overheard voices near the washing area where women gathered. Did you hear? One said loudly. Naomi's boy attacked someone at school today. Another voice followed quickly. I told you before, that child is not normal. Madame Fad's laughter rang above the others. I warned her to take him for deliverance. Now you'll see, the whole school will soon drive them out. Naomi paused briefly, her grip tightening on Jaden's small hand. She longed to scream, to defend him, to tell them she was not broken. But she kept walking in silence, knowing they would never understand. That night, inside their small room, Jaden sat on the mat arranging bottle tops one by one. Naomi watched quietly, her heart aching as the tears she had held back finally slid down her face. She whispered softly, "I will fight for you, Jaden. I promise." What she didn't know was that the battle was only beginning. 2 days after the school incident, Naomi sat on a wooden stool in her shop, working on a piece of fabric spread across the table. By then, the entire compound knew Jaden had pushed a boy. No one said it to her face, but she could feel the whispers whenever she walked past. That evening, after closing the shop, she stood outside to enjoy the evening breeze before going in. Then she noticed a tall figure leaning against the broken streetlight by the gate. Instinctively, she stiffened and clutched her bag. The figure stepped forward slowly, raising a hand politely. "Good evening, ma'am," he greeted. "You don't know me, but I know you. I'm Chibui, Papa Chinhuri's son. I just returned from Port Harcourt." Naomi nodded cautiously, trying to recall the landlord's son she had heard about but rarely seen. "Good evening. Welcome back." Chibui hesitated before speaking again. "I've heard things about Jaden and about the school." Naomi's shoulders tensed. Her voice came out sharper than she intended. "I'm sure you've heard plenty. If you came to add your own opinion, please." But he raised a calming hand. "No, ma'am, not at all. I wanted to speak to you because I understand more than they do." Naomi frowned. "Understand what exactly?" "My sister in Port Harcourt. She was like Jaden. She didn't speak, didn't play, couldn't handle noisy places. People called her names too. My parents thought something was wrong, but it wasn't. We took her to a center, a therapy program. Slowly she improved." Naomi's heart pounded. "Therapy?" He nodded. "Yes. I know one in Surulere, run by a local NGO. They hold free sessions once a week for children like Jaden. It helped my sister so much. That's why I wanted to tell you. There's nothing cursed about your son, Ma. He just experiences the world differently." For the first time in years, Naomi felt a flicker of hope. Her voice dropped. "Do you think they could help him?" Chibu smiled gently. "It won't be quick and it won't be easy. But yes, it can make a difference." That night, as Naomi lay beside Jaden, she dreamt of a future where her son would be understood, where he wouldn't be mocked for being different. The next morning, she told her closest friend, Safayatu, about Chibu's suggestion. Safayatu's eyes widened. "Therapy? Naomi, do you trust this man? Do you know what people will say if they find out you're taking Jaden to strange places?" Naomi sighed heavily. "I don't care what they say, Safi. I've tried everything. I've prayed, I've fasted, I've cried until there were no tears left. If there's even a chance this could help him, I'll take it." A week later, Naomi dressed Jaden and took 2 buses across the city to Surulere. Dr. Adeo, the therapist, greeted warmly, crouching to Jaden's eye level. "Hello, Jaden." Jaden glanced briefly at him, then returned to fiddling with the bottle top in his hand. Naomi's chest clenched, but the doctor only smiled. "That's okay," he said kindly, turning to Naomi. "We don't force words, we build trust first." For an hour, Naomi watched as he used pictures, toys, and soft sounds to gently engage Jaden. To her surprise, Jaden's shoulders eased, and within 15 minutes, he reached for a toy car. After the session, Dr. Adeo sat with Naomi. "Your son has autism, Naomi. That's why he struggles with noise, touch, and change. It's not a curse, and it's not your fault. With time, patience, and therapy, he can learn to navigate the world." Naomi's hands trembled as she clutched her bag. Her throat thickened with tears. Yet for the first time in years, she felt relief. She finally had a name for her son's struggles. She wanted to keep the therapy private, but in Makoko, secrets traveled faster than a network signal. One afternoon, returning from the center hand in hand with Jaden, she spotted Madame Fad near the washing area, speaking loudly with 3 other women. Do you know where Naomi goes every week? Madame Fad asked, pretending to whisper. Someone saw her entering a strange place in Suralire. People say they're doing rituals there. That must be why the boy is like that. The women gasped dramatically and shook their heads. Naomi walked past silently, but by evening, the entire compound buzzed with gossip. Some claimed she was taking Jaden to the Guju people, while others insisted she had joined a cult to fix her son. That night, Sophiata rushed into Naomi's shop, breathless. They're talking about you, Naomi. They want to call a meeting. The next day, Naomi came home from work to find a crowd gathered. At the center stood Madame Fad, poised like a queen before her subjects. Naomi, we've been watching and staying quiet, but not anymore. You've been taking that boy to strange places. Do you want to bring evil into this compound? Do you want other people's children to suffer too? Naomi's voice trembled as she stepped forward, forcing herself to meet Madame Fad's gaze. I am only seeking help for my son. There is nothing evil in that. He has a condition, and he needs therapy. The crowd murmured in confusion. Some asked, therapy? While others frowned, uninterested in what they didn't understand. Madame Fad's voice cut through the noise. We warned you before, but you refused to listen. Now that boy has attacked a classmate, and tomorrow he will harm more children here. If you don't put an end to this, we will report you to the landlord. Naomi clenched her fists. Jaden is not dangerous, and I will not stop fighting for him. If you don't understand, then leave us alone. But her words only fanned the rumors further. The compound turned hostile. Neighbors stopped greeting her. Children were told to avoid Jaden. One night, she even overheard voices outside her door debating whether she and her son should be forced out. And then one evening, her landlord arrived holding a folded paper, avoiding her eyes. Naomi, I'm sorry. Some tenants are threatening to leave. I think you should start looking for another place. The quit notice landed like a stone in her hands. That night, Naomi sat in the dark and wept bitterly, clutching her chest as though it would shatter. The days that followed felt like living in a storm. She worked at her shop every morning, but every evening when she returned, the stairs in the compound pierced through her walls. Naomi tried to stay strong for Jaden, even as her spirit wore thinner each day. One evening, a knock came at the door. When she opened it, she found Chibu standing there with a small bag of bread and 2 bottles of water. You didn't open your shop today? He asked. Naomi shook her head. I wasn't feeling well. He stepped inside and set the bag on the table. They sat in silence for a moment before Chibu spoke softly. Ma'am, don't let them break you. People fear what they don't understand. This isn't Jaden's fault and it isn't yours. Naomi lowered her gaze. They want us gone, Chibu. They think I'm doing something evil. Maybe I was foolish to think I could fight them all. I have only 3 weeks to move, and I don't even know where to go. Chibu leaned forward. You are not foolish. You are a mother fighting for her child. That's what this is. And you're not alone. Let me take you to Dr. Adio properly. He can put everything in writing. The diagnosis, the therapy. With proof, maybe they'll see Jaden differently. Naomi hesitated, then slowly nodded. I will go. 2 days later, Naomi and Chibu sat at a therapy center in Turu while Dr. Adio carefully explained Jaden's condition. Your son has autism. His brain processes things differently. Loud noises, crowds, sudden changes, these overwhelm him. But he is bright, very bright. With consistent therapy, he can learn how to manage the world around him. In fact, with guidance, he can even excel beyond his peers. I will prepare a full diagnosis for you. Naomi blinked rapidly. But they say he's cursed. The doctor shook his head firmly. No, Naomi. He is not cursed and he is not broken. He just experiences the world in his own way. Naomi pressed her hand to her lips. Thank you. Afterward, Dr. Adio led Jaden into the playroom filled with puzzles, blocks, and soft mats. He showed Naomi how the activities encourage children to communicate. As she watched, Jaden reached for a red toy car, paused, and then looked up at her. For the first time that day, his lips parted and in a whisper he said, Mama. Naomi froze. Unsure if she had heard correctly, she covered her mouth and knelt in front of him, trembling. Jaden, what did you just say? He looked at her again, tapped her lightly on the head, and repeated more clearly, "Mama." Naomi broke into tears and embraced him tightly. For 7 long years, she had waited for that word. Now that it came, fragile yet powerful, it felt like the loudest sound in the world. That night, Naomi returned home lighter, clutching the small therapy booklet as though it were a passport to a new future. For the first time, she saw a path ahead. But Makoko was not finished testing her. 3 days later, tragedy struck. Naomi came back from Jaden's therapy session only to find her shop's wooden door wide open, the lock broken. Her sewing machine was gone, along with the piles of fabric she had carefully kept aside for customers. Even the little metal box where she stored her emergency savings had disappeared. Her chest tightened, her legs buckled, and she sank to the floor, staring helplessly at the empty space where her life's work used to be. Neighbors began to gather, whispering among themselves. One woman leaned closer and murmured, "Naomi, they said they saw Madame Fetika's son carrying a sack out of your shop this afternoon." Naomi's head shot up in disbelief. What? Without waiting for anyone, she marched straight to Madame Fetika's door and knocked hard. The older woman appeared slowly, feigning surprise. "And Naomi, what is it?" "My shop has been cleared out," Naomi said firmly. "They saw your son there." "Where is he?" Madame Fetika crossed her arms. "So just because something is missing, it must be my child? Be careful with your accusations, Naomi. You're already carrying enough shame. Don't add lies to it." Naomi's voice trembled but grew louder. "You've despised me since the day I arrived. You've called my son cursed. You've turned everyone against us. And now this. But God is watching you." Madame Fetika's eyes hardened. "Leave, before you regret speaking that way to me." Tears streamed down Naomi's face as she walked away, already knowing no one would stand beside her. 2 days later at dawn, Chibu knocked on her door, holding a folder. "Ma'am, we're going to the Makoko Community Council. I've reported everything. Enough is enough. This afternoon, the matter will be settled." Naomi hesitated, but Chibu pressed on. "You've kept silent for too long. If you don't speak now, they'll never stop." That afternoon, they went together to the community hall, where disputes were judged. At the head of the wooden table sat the landlord, flanked by 6 council elders. Tenants and curious neighbors filled the room. As Naomi and Jaden stepped inside, murmurs spread. At the far end, Madame Fetika sat proudly with her son, as though victory was already hers. The chairman cleared his throat. "Naomi Abalad, you requested this hearing. Speak." Naomi rose slowly. "I am a mother, and since the day my son was born, I have fought for him. He is different. He doesn't learn like other children. He doesn't play like them. But that doesn't make him cursed. He is my child and he is special." The hall went silent. Naomi lifted the folder, holding up therapy documents. "This proves my son has autism. It is not witchcraft. It is not evil. Yet ever since I moved here, we have been mocked, shunned, and insulted. My shop was robbed. My son was nearly expelled from school. I have stayed silent long enough." She turned to Madame Fetika. "If you believe we bring harm, prove it here today. But if you can't, stop destroying us." The crowd grew still. For the first time, Madame Fetika's confidence faltered. Her son shifted nervously, refusing to meet anyone's eyes. Then a young woman from the back spoke out. "I saw him that day at Naomi's shop. I saw him carrying a sack." Madame Fetika's son stammered a denial, but 2 more neighbors stepped forward to confirm it. The chairman spoke firmly. "Naomi's name is cleared. The theft will be investigated. Stolen goods must be returned and damages repaid. From this day, no one in this compound is to harass her or her son again. Is that understood?" The room murmured in agreement. When Naomi returned home with Jaden, neighbors greeted her kindly. Some touched her arm in apology. A few even smiled at Jaden. That evening, as Naomi sat on the veranda watching the Lagos sky, Jaden quietly arranged his bottle caps beside her. Suddenly he pointed upward. "Blue," he whispered. Naomi froze. She turned to him. "What did you just say?" He looked at her again. "Blue." Tears streamed down Naomi's cheeks as she pulled him close, kissing his forehead again and again. The word was small, but it meant everything. It was proof her son was finding his path, in his own time, and in his own way. Thank you for listening to this story. Please share your thoughts in the comments, send it to your loved ones, and give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time, goodbye.